Hi everyone, welcome back. My name's Jane if you're new here, and welcome back and thank you for following me if you've been here before. Following on, yes, I have clothes on, just getting that out there. Following on from last week's video on my symptoms, I've spoken to a lot of my friends in an MS group that I go to and got sort of their take on their symptoms. Some of them are symptoms I've experienced before, some of them are new to me, or certainly experiences I have not had. My form of MS, I was diagnosed nearly 30 years ago with relapsing remitting MS, which basically means I have relapses and then I have periods of remission. On the scale of MS diagnoses, I suppose it's probably the nicer one, if you were to say any of them were nice. But, you know, there are different levels, and that is sort of relapsing remittance is kind of the bottom level, as it were. Not meaning in any way, shape or form that it's the easiest one to have. So please don't think I'm belittling it. It's just that is what I have. That's what I've been diagnosed with. But MS it's a progressive disease. It's a debilitating disease, and it's just not very nice a lot of the time. But you can live with it. There are ways to. There are medications you can take, disease-modifying drugs, tablets, injections, infusions, things like that. Diet and exercise can play a part, but not for everyone. As I say, everything's not for everyone. I know people who have never taken any medication, but the neurologists do recommend starting medication as soon as possible because it can help you in the future. I know that it didn't really explain it much to me at the time. I didn't really understand it, I suppose. But I think it's along the lines as if I wasn't taking medication and I was having a lot more relapses, potentially my disease would progress quicker. I could be wrong. As I say on every video, I'm not a medical professional. So, you know, don't come at me if that is wrong. Correct me by all means, though. So that's where we are. And I've made a few notes from my lovely friends. So we'll start with my friend Karen. She is immobile. She travels at most places with a mobility scooter, and at home she would have to use, I think they term it as a rollator. Basically, I suppose, as I would understand it, it's a bit like a Zimmer frame. So it has wheels and you can use it to hold on to move with. So yeah, her legs are, but that we'll get to as her symptoms. So if I keep looking down, I have notes. My video is a little bit late this week. I had my injection that I take fortnightly on Wednesday. We're now on Friday, and it didn't sit well with me this time. I struggle with it every time I take it, usually in the form of really bad headaches for 24 hours or something. Every now and again I just get horrendous, like I've got full-blown flu, and I was sort of halfway between in this one, so I just haven't been feeling very well the last couple of days, but I'm feeling a bit better again today, so I'm back. So Karen, one of the big things she struggles with is fatigue. Now, most people think of fatigue as tiredness. It is tiredness, but it's so much deeper than that, so much stronger than that, I suppose. It's not something I have experience of badly. But this is like, as she's described it, as like an overwhelming tiredness, a whole body tiredness where you're incapable of doing anything. So sheer exhaustion. She has a sleep every afternoon because she just physically can't, but she doesn't wake up feeling refreshed or any better, but she physically has to go to sleep. She could sleep for 12 hours and wake up and still feel as exhausted as she did previously. It's not tiredness. Sometimes she'll go and have a shower and then she'll have to go for a lie down after having a shower because just the act of having a shower has knocked her. And I have had that before. And you could wake up in the morning and physically, it's almost like paralysis. You cannot get out of bed. Simple as that. You are so tired to the bone that you actually physically cannot get out of bed. So, fatigue. Foot drop. Now, as she's described it, as her toes don't lift up, so her foot goes like that. So you'd end up dragging your foot. And that combined with, a spasticity that she has in her legs, which is overwhelming stiffness, and literally she's unable to bend properly at the knees. She can't control bending at the knees. So with the foot drop and then she can't walk, or not very much without some form of help. And as I say, sticks not enough for her. She needs the rollator. But yes, spasticity we'll get into with one of the other ladies that I've spoken to, because her story's more, let's say that. Numbness, which I've discussed last week, is mine, but she gets it constantly in her feet and legs. Again, sort of Karen's main seems to be from the waist down, her issues. But she sometimes has the problem with her hands, that her hands just don't work, which obviously I know. Skin crawling, as she's explained it. I described it last week as I've experienced this as my bones being itchy, and you can't. She's described it as like having insects crawling all over you, but there's nothing there. You know, sometimes like you get a loose hair on your back and you're like, oh, what's that on me? Yeah, but that's like all the time. In another friend, which I will get to, but she experiences it in her face. Or altered sensations, so you feel as if there's like water dripping on you, but there's not. The feeling of being wet, as if you've weed yourself, but you haven't, but you feel as though you're wet. I had something similar to that, but that's when I sort of described it as the desensitized skin. You can feel something, but you don't quite know what it is you're feeling, whether you're wet or dry or hot or cold, and that sort of thing. Balance for Karen, always was falling over and tripping. And then optic neuritis, feels like your eyeballs are swollen, blurred vision all the time, unable to focus, and she actually went blind in one eye for a few months. And we'll move on to my friend Mark. He's also uses a mobility scooter. He can walk with the assistance of a stick, but he, in true MS fashion, he looks like he's drunk and he's embarrassed, which I completely understand. So he tends to use a mobility scooter most of the time if he's out and about. He has described his symptoms as he gets foot drop badly. And I'm not even going to try and remember the name. I will try and tag it in the description below, but he has something that, a mechanical thing that he attaches to his leg. I want to say it's like fez, not like the hat, and it sends like an electric current which lifts your foot. So I will try and get into that. Painful and cold feet all the time, blurred vision, brain fog, MS hug, but he had it, whereas I described I had mine under my boobs. He described it, his would have been right across his chest, so over his nipples. But yeah, he said that was a really horrible one for him. And then my friend Lynn. Lynn didn't used to be a few years ago, but now she's totally wheelchair bound. She's totally immobile in her legs and her hips. She's suffered terribly with optic neuritis, to the point where one of her eyeballs actually got stuck in a wrong direction. She can't focus, has double vision. This is a big one for her, spasticity. But at night, when she's lying in bed and she lies on her back, as I say, she's quite immobile. So she'll be lying on her back, and her spasticity, and her legs will just suddenly go like that, and a lot, bending at the knee and just dragging straight up the bed. And because of this, she was getting a friction burn on one of her heels, because this was happening all the time during the night. And she had the doctors come and visit, and she had a quite nasty blister, which they dressed. And they said, you know, if that bursts, we're going to have to come in regularly to dress it. But that was over the space of a couple of weeks, and it's now fully ulcerated, and it's gone from, she described it as going from that size blister to like this now, round her heel and foot, and fully ulcerated now. It's agony, and she's having to have that redressed every couple of days, all because of spasticity, which is also still going on while she's got that. So she's in a pretty bad way at the minute. Bladder and bowel issues. I've mentioned this briefly last week. A lot of people actually self-catheterize. I've not had to do that. Some people simply have not got a choice. They have no bladder control, and it's nothing to do with your pelvic floor being weak or anything like that. It's, you know, when your bowel and your bladder decide to release, you can't do a thing about it, no matter who you are. So, yeah, she struggles with that as well. Then we have Sally. Sally has also had really bad optic neuritis. She said she feels hers was very painful. It's like being stabbed, and it would happen as it would feel as if you were being stabbed up the nose, in the ears, through the roof of your mouth. And it would be especially, she described it especially at night for her. And she's on extra strong painkillers for that. Skin crawling, as I explained, she explains that gets that mainly on her face. And in early days, I think she mentioned pre-diagnosis, she felt like someone was constantly blowing air in her eyes, which I can imagine would be very, very annoying. Sometimes if she looks down onto the floor, her legs would go all tingly and feel like water was running down her legs. That's where Karen gets the feeling as though you've wet yourself, but you haven't. Speech problems for her is especially when she's tired. And she has actually had fits, which she has been told is to do with MS, which again, she hasn't gone into major detail for me. If you are interested, let me know, and I will try and find out some more details from her. And then the lovely Kate. Kate uses a mobility scooter, but can walk with the aid of sticks or crutches. But obviously most people who are in mobility scooters but can walk, it's very slow walking. She knows the crawling sensation and has experienced it most parts of her body. I've got it at the minute in my hands and my forearms, and I'm just constantly scratching, and there's nothing there, but I'm just itchy on arms and But the lovely Kate, she has had real problems with her mouth, swallowing. Swallowing can be a big issue for a lot of people with MS. I've not experienced that one. She didn't really go into detail. It's quite difficult because when we meet up, we're all meeting up for coffee and a chat and just to put the world to rights. And we actually very rarely talk about MS unless someone really needs to. It's just a group of friends getting together for a chat, really. And she was sat at the other end of the table for me and I couldn't really keep shouting at her. But she's lost so much weight recently because she's just not been able to eat. Because she just, for problems with her mouth, someone actually sat next to me, whispered it to me that, yeah, she's had really bad problems with her mouth and swallowing and things like that. So if anything I've covered here, if you want any more details, please put it in the comments below and I will certainly get back to any of you with further details. But as they all say to me, you know, we try and meet up once a week. Everyone still makes the effort to do it. So everything I've just been explaining to you sounds horrendous and oh my God, how do you even cope and things like that. Well, you do, because it just becomes part of life. And when you've got a good grouping of friends and people, you've got people you can talk to that aren't medical professions, that aren't going to fill you full of all these big words and things you don't understand, and then you feel stupid about asking them to explain it, my experience. And a lot of them will either have experienced something that you're asking about or know of somebody, and they can help. They just give you the information they know. So again, we all are very aware that we're not medical professionals. So, but sometimes it just helps having someone to talk to. And also, I was talking to my friend Mark, and we're thinking of starting a podcast. So if this is something you think would be a good idea, please put it in the comments. Let me know if you think this is something you'd be interested in, something that you think is a good idea. And hopefully I will see you at the same time next week. Thanks for watching. Bye.